Hi, welcome to GAYme Speak. I am Layman Kingsford, and this is episode 2. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some of my design stuff, because not only am I a game player, but I'm a game designer. The big project I'm working on right now is called Living Starship. And by working on it right now, I mean for the last 10, 12 years. It's come in all sorts of different iterations, and it is currently settling into big old epic legacy game where you're crewing an entire starship, going on missions, following through plots and stories. All sorts of epic cosmos-changing things are happening in the saga. Every player is going to have their own character that's going to be one of the crew members on the ship, but you collectively as the players will also cooperatively manage the entire crew of your own starship. Now, we'll have other videos talking about the actual crew character cards, each player's actual deck of cards that make up their character. But once the game gets in full force and you're running your own starship, you're going to have to be managing the crew and the ship itself. So, what we're going to do today is take a look at some of those elements of the starship part of Living Starship. I'm going to go ahead and change scenes here. So first off, not only will each player have their own deck of cards representing their character's training and innate abilities, but they are also going to be sharing the use of an entire deck of cards that represent the rest of their crew. In this case, what we have here is this sample. This is a little lowly ensign of the agency division, and they happen to be a specialist in diplomacy. So what we have here is each of the crew cards. It's going to show, much like every character card does, the dice they have available to them. So if when playing this card, they can add a d6 to any mission or task they're working on. If it happens to be a red task, a red agency task, they will still add a d6 to it, but it'll be one of the red ones, which can apply differently than the generic black ones. And if it happens to be a diplomacy event or mission, they will add an additional 4-sided die, d4, to it. So they'd be adding up to 2 extra dice to the dice pool to work on that mission at hand. Now, most of the missions, because this is a roll and write game, are going to be, well, rolling dice, hence the roll part. But the writing part will often be filling in polyomino shapes. In this case, if they were working on some sort of cultural task or mission, their benevolence motivation, and or something like, if it was applicable to the mission at hand, if their ethnicity, the habitat they grew up in, like on board a space station or on board like a desert planet, might be a factor, and also possibly what society they grew up in. Maybe a society of artists, society of administrators. Those are the sorts of things that would grant them access to this particular polyomino shape, in addition to whatever the ship and or other characters would provide them in that given mission. Here in these spaces are spaces for ability stickers. These things, clicking the wrong things. These things can be things that allow you to alter the dice. So oftentimes you can use a character card either to add dice to the pool and or tweak the dice rolls or do different things with the dice. So that's where these ability stickers will get placed, and as each crew member, not only your characters, but each crew member gets to be upgradable, so are all the crew in the crew deck. So the ship will have access to a whole bunch of different polyomino shapes, and they'll be divided up into their own decks. So as you can see, there's quite a wide breadth. We've got little 1-piece, 2-piece, 3-piece polyominoes. And we have a lot of 4-piece, which are quadrominos maybe, and a whole bunch of ones that are made up of 5 pieces. Those are pentominoes, I do believe. What's it? 6-piece ones, sexominoes. I don't actually know the term for it, but the word polyomino sort of is inclusive of all the different shapes, no matter their size or positioning. And on board your ship, you're going to have 5 different decks of these cards. Each of those decks will be individual, so maybe your ship is really good you've built up its production functionality so that not only will it maybe have better dice than what are shown here, but you'll have a broader selection of polyomino cards that you'll have access to. Maybe your ship is better at traveling. Whoops, totally missed that. At traveling, same sort of deal. So each ship is going to be categorized with those 5 functions. So there is travel and production. We also have research. So if you wanted your ship to specialize in a lot of scientific endeavors, research might be one you would customize more greatly and boost it up. Conflict. If you wanted your ship to be something more of a battleship, those you would want to beef up the conflict polyomino deck, as well as the dice and things that go along with its conflict rating. Or if you wanted a ship that was more about diplomacy, perhaps social work, government interactions, you would have its authority rating. So those are the 5 functions of the ship. Let's zoom in here. You can see ship here has spaces for meeples because there's an element of worker placement. So each crew card will also have a meeple that goes along with it. And by placing that in this case that red diplomacy meeple here in the authority section, would give them access to all 4 of these authority dice, a D4, a D6, a D8, and a D12. When they're if you were using that character to try to tackle some sort of authority, like a diplomatic mission. They are also limited by the ship's ability to how many dice can be in that dice pool. So even just one little crew member will trigger the use of your 4 dice, presuming they're not damaged and unavailable. And that character could, in this case if they were on a diplomacy mission, they could add their own D6 to that, giving your dice pool a D4, 2 D6s, a D8, and a D12. But you would see in this case, if it were a diplomacy mission, this character could also potentially add a 6th dice, a D4, to the dice pool, but your ship's rating of authority there does not accommodate that. So as you continue playing the game, you'll be upgrading your ship, not just only the dice, but the number of dice you're able to apply anything. You'll be able to upgrade individual polyominoes, make them easier to roll for, as in addition to adding actually additional shapes into each polyomino deck itself. You'll also be able to add duty stations, meaning you can place more than in this case, your starting bit is 2 meeples, but we have stickers that allow you to place have additional duty stations for each function spot. And so you will see there are also spaces here for damage that the ship takes. If your crew starts becoming more and more distracted for each distraction token placed here, that's going to add one of the impediment dice, one of the pink D10s, that will be rolled into your dice pool and do not count towards that total. But the more you have in there, the more they're going to give minuses to your dice, potentially adding stress or injury to your crew members. That's where distraction tokens would go. You can also see there's also all sorts of other locations here on the ship. All these other spots are the individual department cabins. So let's zoom in here. Let's come over here to some of the purple health division cabins. So crew members can die. Characters, the characters you spend so much time building and customizing that deck, they could die too. You know, Ned Stark, main character in Game of Thrones, spoiler if you haven't seen season 1, but he dies. It was at the time a big shocker. But let's take a look at this surgery center here. It's got one duty station, meaning one meeple can go there. If that meeple happens to be a medical specialist, they will be able to, by being placed there, remove 3 injuries. Sorry, 3 injuries from any crew members. Not just 3 total, not 3 per crew member, but 3 injuries. If that crew member or any other version of purple, like a psychologist or zoologist, they could remove 2 injuries. If you place any other meeple there of any other color, of any other division, they would be able to remove one injury. So part of what we've got going on here is what we're really wanting to work towards is the fact that during a game, you should most times be able to do whatever it is you want or need to do. You may not just got a whole bunch of injuries, but you've already used your doctor, or your medical officer is out of commission. Well, you can place anybody else there. They're going to be able to get rid of injuries, just not as efficiently as a medical specialist would. So that's a big part of the design in this game, is want to make sure you're rarely feel completely locked out of what you need to do. It's still possible because your ship is hemorrhaging damage and all sorts of crew members are incapacitated. You might not be able to do a lot of things. But the point is, we're working on designing this game so that you can do anything, anytime with any crew member or any character. It's just obviously pick them and specialize so that they're more effective and efficient at doing what they're meant to be good at. But every crew member can do anything. So that's part of what we're going for here. And working on this design. So you can see all these other cabins removed. There's the couch, it's the counselor's couch. Can remove stress from your characters. The mess hall, which is run by the biochemistry department, can get discarded character cards. So each of the players' deck of cards that represent their character. Those cards don't normally come back to their hand, but by going to the mess hall and spending time there, that's one way to get cards back. You can go to locations, like in this case, the 3D print shop, as most everything is done by 3D printers. They can print metal, they can print fabric, they can print circuits, they can print organics. But the print shop is where you could go to recover used polyomino cards, in this case, from production. So something we had mentioned is that your deck of polyomino cards, once you use the shape, you don't have access to it again until you do something like this, where you can go recoup one of those cards. And so somebody who's a specialist in supply can recoup 3 of those cards back to your production deck. Anybody who works in the yellow or the gold operations can get 2 back, and placing any little worker meeple here, you'll get at least 1 back for sure. A lot of these others are going to remove different kinds of damage from the ship: structural damage, environmental damage. Environmental damage, didn't mean to do that. Environmental damage will block off your duty stations, so that will prevent you from using certain spaces. Structural damage will actually damage your dice, reduce them in size, so like it would turn a D6 into a D4. So structural damage, and there'll be tokens you'll place on the board to keep yourself reminded of that. I won't go into all of those different details. Do that in another video someday. But you can see, you can, like in the classroom, you can spend time here, have somebody go in there and teach others, and they can improve one of their cards. So your character cards or crew cards can get better. when they go up in rank, they qualify for some training. Can also do all sorts of things to remove ship impediments, character impediments, all that sort of stuff. And that's sort of a nice little overview of what we've got working in the Living Starship ship itself right now. And as the game progresses, as your crew and your characters get better, maybe they succeed at certain missions, and the powers that be, the admirals, will grant you, the players, bigger and better and more powerful ships. So imagine if you had been building up a nice, strong, conflict-based ship. Imagine being granted, after you've played a whole bunch of games and your crew is getting much more experience, maybe one of your characters is about to become captain. Maybe they get to be captain of their own ship, and your next subscription next month shows up, and you've been granted a bigger ship, which might be a second board that gets placed with little pillars over your existing board, meaning your ship has now gotten bigger, and you have all sorts of customized stickers, so you could put in 2 more conflict functions, upgrade those dice. So imagine having a big old battleship that's got 5 conflict function stations, each that can have 5 meeples at them, giving all their dice to it and abilities to tweak those dice rolls. And then the ship itself is all D8s and D12s in their conflict. Now the downside is maybe you won't then have much left for research, so your ship will be not good at doing scientific research. But then you might be sent on a lot of the battle missions, maybe even sent to the war front against the actual alien invasion. You don't know. Your story will be yours and can take you all sorts of different directions you might not expect when you first launch into this game. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to leave it there for now, so feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, please. Check out cheekydingo.com. That's our website. You can keep up with my blog, which I put up on Fridays. Thursday nights, you can check out myself and Lulu all night playing through some Dice Throne. Seeing who. So this week, what is it? Ninja versus Artificer, and I'm playing the Artificer. See if I can win a game. Because if you haven't watched any yet, I won 1 out of 3 so far. And I'm the gamer, and Lulu's the noob. But whatever. Anyway, this is GAYme Speak. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later. Ciao.